I used to tell stories to my classmates when I was a kid. Nothing fancy, just tiny adventures. Like the time I told everyone my goldfish was secretly a time traveler. His name was Spud. He lived in this tiny round bowl on my desk, right next to my spelling books. One morning, I told my best friend, Spud disappeared last night, but when I woke up, he was back, and he looked older. She screamed, I screamed, and by recess, the whole class believed my goldfish had visited the dinosaurs. It got so out of hand that our teacher, Miss Alonzo, called my mom because apparently half the kids were trying to make their pets time travel with kitchen timers. Mom wasn't even mad. She just said, "Honey, maybe you should write those stories down instead of starting a goldfish apocalypse." That was the first time I realized my stories had power. Not big power, like saving the world power, but the kind that made people forget their worries for a minute. It made me feel like the world was okay, like stories could make anything better. And maybe that's why I never stopped telling them. Even when life stopped feeling like a story, I still tried to find one inside the chaos. Years passed. I grew up, got a job, paid bills, did adult things, that awkward transition from I have dreams to I have due dates. I thought I had it figured out. I wasn't rich, but I was fine. Until 2020 happened. COVID hit like a silent bomb. Suddenly, the streets were empty. The days blurred together, and time felt like soup. My parents both lost their jobs in the same month. Dad worked in maintenance, gone. Mom cleaned offices, gone. And me, I was working remotely, pretending I was okay while quietly Googling how to survive with zero savings. Every night, I'd sit by my laptop, scrolling through job listings that didn't exist, reading emails from landlords pretending to be understanding. It felt like the whole world was drowning, and we were just trying to find air in the comment section. Then, my dad got sick. Not COVID, but his heart. The stress was too much. And one morning, I woke up to silence. No coffee brewing, no footsteps. Just the kind of quiet that fills your bones. That's the day I realized life doesn't send warnings. It just happens. The weeks after that were a blur. Paperwork, calls, crying in the bathroom so my mom wouldn't hear. Debt piled up like unwanted mail. I sold things I loved, my camera, my old books, even the guitar Dad bought me in high school. I remember thinking, he'd hate this. There were days I didn't want to get out of bed. And some nights, I'd stare at the ceiling, thinking, is this it? Is this the story? But then one afternoon, my best friend sent me a meme, just a stupid meme, and it made me laugh for the first time in weeks. Like real, ugly laugh, tears and all. That tiny laugh reminded me of something. I wasn't gone, not yet. So, I started small. Made a to-do list. Drink water, shower, don't cry before noon. And that became my victory routine. I picked up freelance work online. At first, it was random. Data entry, writing captions, anything that paid. But one day, I wrote a short story for a client, and when I read it back, I thought, wow, that felt good. It reminded me of that little girl with the time-traveling goldfish. Months passed. The world started reopening, slowly, awkwardly, like it forgot how to be alive. Mom found a part-time job at a local clinic. I started managing my debts one paycheck at a time. We'd eat cheap noodles together and talk about future trips we couldn't yet afford. Still, we smiled. I won't lie, I still owe money. Some days I still feel the weight of what happened. But here's the difference. I stopped running from it. I stopped pretending that strength means never falling apart. Because sometimes strength is just waking up when your story doesn't make sense yet. And now I'm writing again. Not for clients, not for money. For me. I write about loss, love, laughter, and the quiet courage it takes to rebuild. And you know what? It's not the same kind of happiness I had before. It's deeper, quieter, like the kind that grows from the cracks. I tell my stories again, not to escape, but to remember. To remind myself that the bad years don't erase the good ones. They make them shine brighter. So if you're listening to this and you're in your version of rock bottom, please remember, you're still the author. The chapter might hurt right now, but it's not the end. Because maybe, just maybe, one day you'll look back and say, that was the year everything fell apart, so I could finally rebuild.
You ever realize your life has chapters you'd never publish, but you can't put down either? I'm the guy who once tried to fix a leaky sink with chewing gum, duct tape, and a YouTube tutorial from 2011. Spoiler, my kitchen became an infinity pool. I'm also the guy who told a TSA agent that my emotional support item was a breakfast burrito. He let me keep it. America still has heroes. But once upon a time, I was also a dad to a little girl who could turn any hallway into a racetrack and any Tuesday into a holiday. Her name was Lily. And yeah, this story gets heavy. But not yet. Let me earn your trust first. Lily was 3 when she informed me that pancakes were a handheld food and syrup was hair gel for your tongue. She wore rain boots on sunny days because they sounded brave, and when we'd go to the park, she would interview squirrels with a plastic microphone. 5-star journalism, 0 cooperation. We had a ritual. Saturday mornings, I'd make pancakes, she'd make demands. Extra blueberries, extra syrup, extra napkins because you're gonna need them, Dad. She wasn't wrong. And at night, she'd fall asleep with her stuffed elephant, Eleanor, clamped under her arm like it owed her money. Back then, my marriage felt like a tent we were both trying to pitch in a windstorm. Messy, but hopeful. We were young, tired, and in that survival mode nobody warned you about. We had love, we had bills, we had crumb trails leading to every ant in the county. I thought that was what adulthood was. You just keep going. Tape over the draft, patch the tire, pretend the check engine light is a suggestion. Then came the day we didn't plan for, the day the doctor used careful words and a room got very small, very fast. Lily got sick, the kind of sick that makes everyone speak softly like the illness can hear. And after a stretch of time that exists outside of calendars, beeps, charts, tiny socks, big prayers, she was gone. I don't have a good sentence for that. I've tried to write one 100 times. You can't put absence into words. You can only point at the silence and hope someone understands. Grief turned our house into a museum. Her toothbrush stayed in the cup. Eleanor kept her place on the pillow. I learned the weight of a bedroom door that doesn't open. My wife and I began to orbit each other like two moons that lost their planet. Love was there, but it had lost its language. Every word cut. Every quiet cut worse. We tried counseling. We tried walks. We tried pretending we were okay. In the end, we signed papers that felt like an autopsy of a life. I handed back a ring, and in return, I received a set of keys and a silence I didn't know how to carry. So I did what any emotionally intelligent adult would do. I moved into an apartment with a broken elevator and a neighbor who performs karaoke exclusively to the key of not quite. He does total eclipse of the heart as if he personally invented eclipses. Depression came in professional. It brought paperwork. It reorganized my furniture. It reset my clocks to too late to call anyone. I learned the choreography of staying in bed, the choreography of saying, I'm fine, the choreography of making it to 5 p.m., one spoonful at a time. And then I found an illusion that looked like control. Gambling, to me, didn't arrive as a casino heist. It arrived as a phone app with happy colors and a free bet notification. The first time I won $50 felt like God had finally answered a text. Do it again, the app said. So I did. It escalated quietly. $20 became $100. $100 became a weekend. The weekend became a paycheck that decided to cosplay as confetti. I told myself I was due, that lucky was a door I could knock on if I hit it just right. But luck isn't a door. It's a mirror, and I didn't like what I saw. Bills stacked. I borrowed from a friend and called it a short bridge, then forgot to build the other side. I started measuring time between deposits and due dates like a weatherman watching a storm. And every loss arrived with the familiar script. One more bet, one more try, just one more. Here's where the therapist in the audience raises a finger. Grief and addiction like to dance. I didn't know how to hold my pain, so I taught my thumbs to press place bet instead. It wasn't about money. It was about feeling anything other than empty. The bottom is a small place. Mine had a blinking notification and a negative balance. I called my ex-wife to to confess. I expected a trial. She offered a mirror. She said, "You are not the worst thing that's happened to you, but you're making more of them. Stop." She didn't yell. She didn't rescue me. She told me the truth and hung up before I could argue with it. So I did something unheroic and miraculous. I asked for help.
There's a meeting in a church basement where the coffee is strong and the chairs are honest. First night I sat by the exit like someone might yell freeze and arrest my shame. People took turns saying their first names and their truths. No one flinched. No one performed. They told the weather inside their heads. When it was my turn, I said, "Hi, I'm trying." and a dozen strangers said hi, trying. I started counting days, not in wins or dollars, but in little promises I kept. No bets today. Call someone back. Eat food with vitamins. I found a therapist and told her the whole messy draft. She said something I keep in my pocket. Pain demands movement. Let's decide where it goes. I began walking again. Literally. Just walking. Morning routes past a bakery that smelled like second chances. I made pancakes alone on Saturdays. Badly at first. I set an extra napkin on the table even though nobody needed it. I talked to Lily in the quiet. Not to fix it, just to keep love speaking. Somewhere in there, my karaoke neighbor switched to Africa by Toto. I took it as a sign my life was getting better by 3%. I bought a plant I've only killed twice, which, if you're grading on a curve, is progress. Debts didn't vanish. They never do. I called the companies and said the words that taste like metal. I can't pay that, but I can pay this. Turns out, humility opens doors customer service scripts can't lock. I set up a plan. I stuck to it. When I fell, I didn't call it failure. I called it data. Grief loosened its tie. It never left. I don't want it to. Grief is love with nowhere to go. So I give it somewhere. I write to Lily in a notebook she'll never read. I volunteer once a month at the children's wing of the hospital, restocking the tiny socks, smiling at very brave parents. I don't have wisdom. I have presence. Sometimes that's enough. On what would have been Lily's 8th birthday, I made pancakes and donated to the playground fund near her favorite park. I wrote a note. For the kid who interviews squirrels. I imagined Eleanor sitting on a cloud, arms crossed, still owed money. Some jokes are forever. The divorce never turned into friendship, but it turned into peace. We can say her name in the same room without walls growing teeth. We send each other photos on the anniversary, not to reopen wounds, but to water a garden we still share the soil of. If you're still listening, maybe you needed this. Maybe you're holding a loss that doesn't fit in your hands. Maybe your coping looks like my old app. Bright colors, easy lies. Listen, you're not broken. You're bruised. Bruises change color, and then they go. Tell one person the weather inside your head. Move your pain somewhere kinder. Into a walk, a room full of coffee and folding chairs, a therapist office, a notebook, a prayer. And when the world asks you to bet on a miracle, remember what a miracle actually looks like. One ordinary day you didn't quit. I still owe money. I still get sad in grocery store cereal aisles for reasons I can't explain. I still miss a small hand tugging at my shirt sleeve and a voice demanding more napkins. But I keep the stove warm on Saturdays. I keep one extra napkin on the table. I keep going. Today, my victories are quiet. Another day without a bet. Another bill paid. Another step taken under a sky that forgave me before I asked. I am not the man who lost everything. I am the man who kept something. I kept love. I kept the story. And I'm still writing the next chapter. If you are too, pull up a chair. The coffee's strong. The pancakes are uneven. And there's plenty of napkins.
You ever look at something old and think, why do I even keep this? And then realize later, it might have kept you instead. This is the story of how I lost almost everything. My marriage, my mom, my savings, my sanity, and how something I thought was worthless ended up saving my life. But don't worry, we'll start with the funny parts first, because honestly, if I don't laugh about it, I'll cry all over again. When I was little, my mom used to say, "Save everything, mija, because someday you'll need it." And she meant everything. Plastic grocery bags, butter containers, those tiny ketchup packets that multiply like rabbits in the fridge. We weren't poor exactly, but we weren't Target rich either. You know the type. People who buy new Tupperware because they can. Our family motto was, if it fits in a coffee can, it has potential. Anyway, my childhood was loud. My dad worked nights as a mechanic, my mom worked mornings as a nurse, and I grew up learning how to make dinner by the sound of microwave beeps. Still, we were happy. I thought we were the richest people alive because we had pancakes every Sunday, and my dad always let me hold the flashlight when he worked on cars. Fast forward to adulthood. I got married, bought a house, checked all the boxes you're supposed to. You know that feeling when you think, finally, I'm doing it right. Yeah, I had that for about 3 months. My husband and I, let's call him Mark, we loved each other, but our marriage was like IKEA furniture. Good intentions, bad assembly. We fought about bills, dishes, the thermostat, you name it, but we always made up. Until we didn't. Then COVID hit. Suddenly the world stopped. And we stopped with it. Mom got sick first. Not COVID, something else, something meaner. And because of lockdowns, I couldn't even visit her in the hospital. We FaceTimed once, and she said, "Don't cry, mija. I'm just taking a little nap." 2 days later, she was gone. I didn't get to hold her hand. I didn't get to say goodbye. I just sat in my car, staring at my phone, waiting for a message that never came. After that, everything started breaking in slow motion. Mark lost his job. I lost my patience. The walls in our house started to echo with silence, the kind that sounds like goodbye. We tried to patch it up. Therapy, date nights, cooking classes. But grief doesn't like third wheels. I remember one night, we burned dinner so bad the smoke alarm went off. We stood there laughing and crying at the same time, holding burnt lasagna like it was proof we were still trying. It wasn't enough. When he left, I didn't even fight it. I was too tired. I signed the papers, packed half my life into cardboard boxes, and moved into a tiny apartment with beige walls and a landlord who thought repairs were a myth. That's when the real depression started. I stopped cooking, stopped answering calls. I ate cereal straight from the box because washing dishes felt like climbing Everest. My job barely covered rent, and debt collected faster than my will to care. One morning, I was digging through my storage bin looking for something to sell. Maybe my old laptop or that cursed wedding china. When I found it, my mom's old sewing machine. It was dusty, heavy, and had a sticker that said, "Handle with care," which was ironic because I'd been doing the opposite with my life. I almost threw it out, honestly. I was like, who even sews anymore? But something stopped me. Maybe it was her voice in my head. Maybe it was the fact that I had nothing left to lose. So I plugged it in. It coughed like an old man at first, then whirred to life. Slow, steady, loyal. Like it remembered what it was for, even if I didn't. I started small, hemming my jeans, fixing a curtain. Then one day, I made a tote bag out of an old bedsheet. I posted it on Instagram as a joke, like, look who's turning into grandma. Someone messaged me, "How much for the bag?" I laughed. I said, "You want this?" They said yes. Then another person messaged, then another. By week 3, I was shipping 5 bags a day for my kitchen table. I named the shop Thread of Grace because that's what it felt like. A single thread keeping me from unraveling completely. I still had debt, sure. Still had nights I cried on the floor. But now I had something my grief couldn't take. Purpose. I started donating a portion of each sale to a local hospital in my mom's name. And one day, I got an email. We'd love to feature your story in our newsletter. That was the first time in years I felt proud. Funny thing is, that sewing machine wasn't worth much, maybe $50 at a pawn shop. But it was everything to me. It stitched my life back together, one crooked seam at a time. Now, 3 years later, I still sew. Not because I need the money, though it helps, but because it reminds me that broken things can still make something beautiful. I'm still paying off debts, still burn dinner sometimes, but I laugh again, I see light again, and every time the machine hums, I hear my mom whisper, "Handle with care." So, yeah, maybe you've got something sitting in your closet right now. Something you think is useless, outdated, too small, too broken. Don't throw it away just yet, because sometimes the thing you think has no value is the thing that's waiting to remind you of yours.